Thank you. You guys hearing me okay? Well, we'll have you do it again later. The reason for the microphone is not so much that you can hear me, but that, as Larry said, this is the beginning of a much bigger thing. You are our first class of Bikur Cholim angels, and we're recording this so that people who want to join you down the road, and we're not ready to run a whole other session like this, can just have access to this video. So that's what that's all about. I'm going to start by emphasizing the word angel. Some of you who come to services from time to time know that there's a little kavanah in our prayer book about Shalom Aleichem, where there are angels all over the place. And I think it's Larry Kushner. Sorry, it's Harold Kushner. No, it's Larry Kushner. They're both fabulous rabbis. Larry says there are angels everywhere. They're often unknown even to themselves. And never forget that you yourself might just be one of God's angels, in fact, one whose mission expands and extends over many lifetimes. So, I like putting the word angel in here, and I chose the word team. Larry used the word ministry. And when we had Rabbi Sid Schwartz here a couple weeks ago, he spoke with the board. You were with us that morning? No, you couldn't get out of your driveway. Anyone with us that morning? Anyway, he was saying one of the things that churches do really well is they talk in terms of ministry. We don't tend to use that word, but we decided the idea of a team seems like a great extension of that. You're a part of something important. It's not just another piece of busy work. So, Bikur Cholim Angels Team is how I just thought I might get us started. I'm going to read for you the mission statement and then the statement of inclusion. And I want you to just see what Larry said in context with the way we describe ourselves. Temple Sinai is a progressive, Reformed Jewish congregation dedicated to the spiritual, social, and intellectual development of our members through engaging worship, community involvement, and inspiring learning within a caring, responsive, and inclusive extended family. Growth happens here. Just in your beginning understanding of what this program is intended to achieve, think about how many elements in our mission statement are addressed by Bikur Cholim. Our statement of welcome says, you are welcome here. Refugees are welcome here. People of color are welcome here. Members of the LGBTQ+ community are welcome here. Partners of another faith tradition are welcome here. Spiritual seekers are welcome here. Atheists and those who struggle with religion are welcome here. Our doors are open to all people, period. How do you show welcome? By extending an interest in, a concern for, an investment in other people. So when you put these two things together, you become the vehicle through which our mission statement is actualized. You're the ones who will make sure that every person who connects to this family knows that they matter, feels remembered, particularly when they're feeling most isolated. Larry started us with Shehechianu. I'm going to turn our attention a little bit differently. Since this is a training session, we're going to start with a blessing over Torah. And I heard a beautiful teaching this afternoon as I was doing some study about this format of blessing. I'll share it with you in a moment. But we're here to learn. So if you know the words, join me. Otherwise, Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam. Asher hishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Thanks God for giving us commandments and making us holy. And the teaching I got from the Sfat Emet this afternoon is v'tzivanu can be translated as who made us mitzvot. We are the commandments. We are the good deeds. I think that's pretty powerful. in engaging with this kind of work, you're going to feel what that means. Some of you know what I'm describing. Here's a text from Maimonides' Mishnah Torah. Okay? His Mishnah Torah was designed to expand on and expound upon the material that was biblical or Mishnaic, meaning centuries before the Common Era, even through the Talmud, through the 5th century Common Era. He helped us understand how to use it. So here's what he says on the matter of Bikur Cholim. Visiting the sick is a commandment incumbent upon all, and even the great ones visit the small ones. We visit many times a day, and the one who visits more is more praiseworthy, provided they don't bother the sick ones with their visits. And anyone who visits a sick person, it's as if he lifted part of his illness and made it lighter. And anyone who doesn't visit, it's as if he is a spiller of blood. Forgive the masculine language. We don't visit the sick person except from the 3rd day of the illness and onward. But if the illness overtook him suddenly and became severe, we visit him right away. And we don't visit the sick person either in the first 3 hours of the day or in the last 3 hours of the day, because that's when they are busy with the needs of a sick person. And we don't visit those who are sick with intestinal diseases, or with eye diseases, or with headaches, because the visiting is difficult for the sick ones. Share back to me, reflect what you see in here that's worth articulating, because you see it one way and want to make sure others see something that you see. What's important in that text? Kara, can you see okay?
I can see. To be respectful. That's why you don't go too early. You don't want to inconvenience the other person, or make them, have to defend themselves, that they have things to do and to get ready. Because if you're sick, you're not going to jump out of bed, with what energy grabs.
That's great, Andrea. To not inconvenience them. But what if you're only free at 7 a.m.? And that's the time you have to connect with this person.
You make it work.
You make it work.
Because it's about the other person, it's not about you.
Beautiful. Robin says, because it's about the other person. It's not about you. Thank you. What else? That's perfect.
I also like the 3rd day, because it takes somebody a couple days to understand what's going on, to process it, and by the 3rd day it seems like, okay, they're ready for people to join them. I love the timeliness of this whole piece, because it's just really about the other person, giving them the time to be in it, and then welcome you, and then that way you can really be present for them, because they're probably not going to be mindful of you. The first couple of days they're processing what's going on.
So you like that cushion of time at the front end of an illness, just because of the sensitivity to what it's like to be someone going through something big. Excellent. Anyone else want to?
Well, I like the part where it says that he lifted part of his illness and made it lighter. So for me, that really conceptualizes the idea that you are not alone.
Yeah. Elizabeth, there's an expanded articulation of this in the Mishnah that says, when you visit somebody who's going through hardship, you can take 1/60th of their pain and suffering. And so it does actually work that way. I mean, if you think about it quite literally, if you make a visit, you don't take away much, but you leave them feeling better. And so that's a little bit of their pain and suffering gone. Yeah, it's really very much about how you can help someone. You can shoulder a little bit of what they've got to hold on to.
And it's interesting he uses the spiller of blood. It's almost like a plague, like a parody on the Passover story.
The spiller of blood connecting to the plague. I'm gonna make it a little bit more literal,
Okay.
because of what Larry was describing. That when people are neglected, they die. Speaking with one of our our centenarian congregants this afternoon, and she says that once a week she gets to go over to her grandson's house, and I could just tell how much that predictable, regular connection with people living out in the world, how much it means to her. We talked about that. Yeah, very good. So we keep using these expressions, Bikur Cholim. Let's take a few moments. Oh, you're kidding me. All right. I can do this. I can be flexible. Bikur. Anyone know what it means? Livaker. To visit. What is the essence of the word visit? To spend time with. To listen. To engage with. Very nice. Thanks, Nicole.
To be out of your everyday life and to go into somebody else's.
Oh, I like that. To enter somebody else's life. Often requiring us to step out of our own life for a little while. Beautiful. To give. Yeah. Generosity is baked right into the notion. That's right. Very good. How about the notion of, I keep pushing the button thinking it's going to be there. We can expand the idea as well of bikur. It doesn't have to just be knocking on their front door and entering their space. What else do you think could be included under the umbrella of connecting with, engaging with, witnessing, giving to the other?
Being active. I mean, I think you're implying like it could be over the phone.
Yes.
It could be text messages, it could be to communicate, to instigate some communication that's going to make the other person feel acknowledged.
Beautiful. We heard over the phone, texting.
I think even sending something to somebody's home is a way of visiting, like you're giving them something.
Like
A meal, like to make
sending a meal. Very good. What else?
Flowers.
Flowers. Beautiful.
Card.
Card. Yes. Zoom meetings, perhaps even? Yeah. All exactly right. Please know, by the way, that things like flowers and meals come with an expense that we don't expect you to shoulder. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But yeah, all of that is exactly right. How about, I'm going to do it again, the next word, Cholim. Cholim. I'm going to break the surprise here. It means sick people. Now, let's expand it. Who else is included? Family. Excellent. Of the identified patient or elder or, yeah, the family. Exactly right. Who else? In addition to somebody who has a diagnosis, who else are we thinking about in this program of Bikur Cholim? How did Larry describe the 81 people that you could call right now? He didn't say sick people. Elders, right, good. Who else?
Families of deceased.
Good, mourners, grievers, yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
anyone who's considered a caregiver.
Caregivers,
Isolated people.
isolated people, yes, yes. Yeah, good. What qualifies you to do this work? Elizabeth, you're a social worker, so you get to stay quiet for just a moment. What qualifies you to do this work? Where do you get off thinking that you've got something to contribute to the reality of the list of people you just described?
Just that. Just feeling that you have that.
Yeah.
That can be enough.
Alan says, just feeling that you've got something to contribute. Yes, what else? This training, lovely. Thanks, Nicole. You should probably wait until it's over to see if you still feel that way. Good.
Common background, some of us may have been in that same place and we know what it's like to be in that spot.
We would call that familiarity with the other's experience what? Empathy, right. Do we need to have any familiarity with their experience? No, we might call that what? Sympathy, right. Yeah. Built into the notion here is that you're sitting here, you said hineni, I'm ready, pick me, because you understand the core concept of B'Tselem Elohim, that humans are made in God's image. And that means in your understanding, you see every human as worthy of a visit, worthy of a connection, worthy of being thought of and remembered and held onto. That's what qualifies you to be here. You are angels, and you should not forget that. Let's talk for a few. Anyone have any questions or thoughts or observations before we go into some tachlis detail? Okay. I'm going to run through how this process is meant to work. All right? Here's what's going to happen. When we become aware that somebody is ready for a contact, there's going to be an email that comes out, perhaps from Larry or perhaps from the congregants who begin to take over ownership of the program, just like circles. Ideally, this won't be run by professionals. This will be owned by you. An email will go out saying, I'm looking for, I don't know, maybe we'll say an angel. I'm looking for an angel. We've got a male, age 61, who's just lost a partner, and I don't know, you get the idea, some basics. And you're gonna think to yourself, you know what, it's a good time for me, actually, I just finished that big project at work, and I've always had an easier time talking with males, or, God, I remember how much the loss of my, what did I say, lost is what? Partner. I remember when I lost my partner, how powerful that was, how nice it would have been. I feel like this is my moment. You're going to respond to the email, and you're going to say, hey, Nanny, I'm ready. 4 other people are also going to respond to the email. And then the person who's, or the small group of people who are administering the program are going to look and say, Sophia and Marion and Elizabeth and Andre all replied. They know this guy, and they're thinking, Sophia is perfect. They're going to thank everyone else and say, all right, thank you, stay tuned, because there are 80 other contacts we already need. Sophia's going to get a more detailed email with the fellow's name, his email address, his phone number, his location, any other pertinent details that she needs. And she's going to be encouraged to get going, because this fella, are they going to know? They're going to be expecting the call. We're going to let them know that one of our Bikur Cholim angels is soon to be reaching out. So don't let it go on for a week. The worst thing is when you tell someone, you're going to get a call, and then no one calls. Sophia's going to make a call in the next day or two. She's going to introduce herself. She's going to say, here's my little script. Hi, John. My name's Sophia, and I'm a congregant of Temple Sinai. We'll give you this script. Don't worry. And you don't have to use the script, by the way. This is just for those of you who prefer scripts. I'm a congregant of Temple Sinai, just like you, John. I understand that we've been matched up for a visit. I'm really looking forward to that. Can we try to find a time that's convenient for me to come by in the next week or two? That presupposes that it's actually a physical visit. If it's not, that script changes to say, John, I'm so looking forward to talking with you. Is now a good time? I've got some time. I thought maybe we'd get to know each other. And then you've got the phone here and you're just chatting. That's how the relationship gets underway. After that happened, yeah, Nicole?
One question. A moment ago, you said something along the lines of, eventually a congregant will be owning this and they'll get a request from one of the 80 people and they said, and 4 people are going to say, hey, and the person who sent the email was looking for someone to volunteer. you said that they will know the person who is in need. Eventually, like, I'm assuming it'll start with you guys, but, right. But eventually, like, how would we know?
Okay, that's a fair question. Nicole's pointing out the fact that if she becomes one of the coordinators of the program, she's not going to know very many people, if any, on that list of 81 elders. And so we do this with our B'nai Mitzvah mentors as well. We've got some mentors in the room. Before we match up a mentor with one of our students, Larry's usually pretty centrally involved, saying, oh, this kid, you know, here are the things I know about this kid and the family, and therefore that mentor is probably a good fit. Larry may be involved in making those initial connections, and other than that, it also might not matter all that much. You know, if we may have a little more information. It may be that John prefers to be visited by another guy, and you know, and if you've got Andre who opted in, that helps your connection. But you're right, you're not expected to know everybody on the list. Marion?
Why, so let's say 4 people respond and say they're interested in helping John. Why would you only choose 1? Why not choose 2? Doesn't John get twice the empathy?
Marion's wondering why, if there are 4 volunteers, why only pick 1 to go create that relationship with John? I'll offer a response. It's not a question I had anticipated, and you can all push back. Number 1, there are 12 of you or so, and 81 elders. That's only counting the elders. It's not counting the mourners, and the ones who've gone through surgeries, and the ones who just lost a job, and the ones whose pet died. There's a lot of need. And so spreading you out would be the first tactical approach. The second answer I might give would be that part of what we believe so deeply in here is the creation of relationships that are based on depth rather than breadth. It's why the circles are small, so you can really connect with each other. So again, this one's less fleshed out in my mind, but if John now has 2 new people coming in, it might be a little harder for John to focus on the formation of a new connection with a person. And if you feel strongly about it, I would accept pushback later.
So if there are 2 people and John makes a connection with 1 and doesn't make quite the same connection with the other, at least he has the connection.
Yeah.
Whereas if there's 1 person and it seems like that's a good person for John.
Yeah. Okay, so we will look into it. We'll consider that. That's not a bad observation. Out of curiosity, Marion, in your imagination, did you picture both volunteers going to visit John side by side?
Yeah.
Or, okay, 2 separate visits. Okay. Yeah, Beth.
So my understanding that there is sort of an initial conversation with the person to ensure that they are welcoming a visit or a call. That's not part of our job.
Correct. No. They will expect you. And perhaps we should also vet for the volunteers whether this relationship is intended to be a phone relationship, or if John actually is looking forward to you coming on over and sitting with him over a cup of coffee or something, so that you're not going in blind to that. We were calling them warm calls. They're not cold calls.
No cold calls.
After you have that first interaction, we're going to ask you to circle back around to the coordinator and let them know that it happened, and let them know what the plan is. If we identify 1 or 2 of you, and we haven't heard from you in a day or 2, we'll have to chase you and say, Sophia, you were supposed to call John. Did that happen? And Sophia's going to say, of course it happened. I just forgot to tell you. But we really don't want John to be wondering, who's going to be calling? I see you. Give me a second to finish my sentence. Yes, Robin?
I've just raised my hand and a suggestion on that part.
Yeah.
Instead of sending emails and whatever, it may be nice to have like a Google Doc with a spreadsheet saying, did you call this person? You can say X, and that way you guys see it, and there's not all these emails going back and forth, and then you just have a sheet that you can look back on.
Okay.
That's our Google Admin.
I'm making a note.
2 committees with this one. But now.
I think Laura
What's that?
The initial contact with this group, it's possibly the instead of an email, possibly a WhatsApp group.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. So here's what's happening right now. You're helping us ideate and rub off the rough edges of the program.
I didn't hear what Kara said though.
Kara suggested that an easier way to communicate with an active group is WhatsApp.
Agreed.
Yes.
So I'm debating between inviting all of this input or trying to move through the training, because this is actually really valuable. I love Marion's suggestion.
Have a part two.
There may be a part 2.
You knew, hold on, there is no sympathy, there is no empathy, you knew who you got.
That's true. That's true. Larry, we have to be more careful next time. Next time, let's fill the room with some duds, okay? All right, so that first call, that first interaction is designed to leave the other person feeling at ease. You are designed to be a non-threatening, non-anxiety producing entity. You want to get off the call setting up the next interaction. That might be a call, it might be a visit, it might be Zoom, I suppose, but you want to try to finish up with God, John, I really enjoyed chatting with you, even for this brief time. I'd love to call again. Would it be all right if I called you next week? Or, this has been great, John. I understand you were open to a visit. I'd love to find some time that's convenient for you to come on over next week or the week after. You don't want to let too much time elapse, because the warmth and the openness that can be created in that first call can cool fairly quickly. A week and a half later, John may be thinking, I don't know if I want to visit. But now he's got to cancel with you, you got to try to reschedule. So try to narrow that time window a bit. Let's imagine the time you're there with John, the conversation you're having, okay? So if you plan to stop over at John's on Tuesday at 2 o'clock, because that's what you've both agreed works for you, it's not a bad idea to just either send a text or make a quick call on Tuesday morning, not too early, maybe 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, just to say, hey, John, it's Sophia. Just wanted to check and make sure that this afternoon is still a good time for me to come over. Easy for people, especially in the midst of their stuff, to forget. And you wouldn't want to knock on the door and surprise them. So that first reminder call is not a bad choice. Do everything you can to arrive on time. Just common courtesy. I might suggest, this is what I usually do, and this is true, I try to arrive where I'm headed 2 minutes early or more. I park around the corner, and I just sit in my vehicle for a moment, and I breathe through a centering moment as I imagine, as I remind myself what it is I'm about to do. And I strongly encourage you to sanctify the moment in whatever way is right for you. It might be a blessing, it might be a smile, it might be an expression of inner gratitude, and if this doesn't speak to you, don't worry about it, just drive to the driveway. But it's a nice way to change your whole space, because it's not about you. It's not about who just cut you off on High Ridge. It's not about the pressure you're feeling at work for the deadlines that are being constantly pushed on you. It's not about that. This whole thing has got to be about John. So spending that little time beforehand to get ready is really valuable. Oh, I wrote a little I wrote a little blessing. I'll share it with you later, don't worry. And you should write your own blessing. This is my blessing. You can use it if you want, but you should write your own. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, who has placed the divine image in all of us and given me the opportunity to honor that in the person I am about to visit. You can do that too, just before dialing the phone. if it's gonna be a phone contact, before you dial, just slow things down for a moment. When you arrive at the door, have a smile on your face. It's a really good idea to have a name tag, if you can manage it. Maybe we've been talking about name tags. If we're gonna spend money on nice name tags, it should be for these folks. Let's get name tags for all of our Bikur Cholim angels. Why do you sound surprised? You know, that's not a bad idea.
Are they giving you like wings like you get on the airplane?
You know, hopefully John isn't gonna forget your name, but if John does forget your name, oh, it's so awkward, you know. He's now already past the point where he can comfortably say, I'm sorry, can you tell me your name again? So if you can open the door and say, hi, I'm Sophia, and then you've got this nice name tag that says, you know, it's a Temple Sinai name tag, it says Sophia on it, it's gonna be awesome, okay? When you enter their space, again, now I'm focusing on physical visits. When you enter their space, I encourage you to look around. Take accounting of the space. Be looking for things like the following. Do you see photos, particularly of family members or pets? Do you see tchotchkes that are on the mantle, or interesting art pieces that are on the wall? Do you see any pets? And very often they have some raggedy old dog that comes up and like barely makes it its way over to you. I don't know why they're always there. So all of this stuff is really valuable for those moments where the conversation might get a little bit awkward. They're also really good starters. As you come in, John will give you an idea of where you're intended to sit. Likely to be either the kitchen table or the living room. Occasionally, you may visit people who have an aide that grants you entrance and then brings you to the bedroom where John is in bed, because that's what John can manage, and there'll be a chair there for you to sit next to John. It's a great way to say, oh my God, John, who is this in the picture? Or, oh, John, who's this little furry guy? Or, John, where did you get that big sword that's like up on the wall? And is there a story behind that? They're openers. They're ways to show interest in who John is and to get John rolling. They often will offer you some kind of refreshments. I can't tell you how many cookies I've eaten. It's polite to eat a cookie or to have the coffee or to have some juice or whatever they offer you. You do not need to. You can absolutely say, oh, thank you very much, no. Tell them you have an allergy to cookies or something. I don't know. You don't have to accept the refreshments. And if you're open to it, it makes them feel good. Who knows when the last time John hosted was? Let's talk for a few moments about boundaries. Anyone have any questions or observations? Marion? Yeah. So don't wear a name tag. How's that? Part of what
It just seems too formal, like you're there as a representative of Temple Sinai.
Some of you, and some of you, like me, feel like there's an additional level of access granted when there is a degree of officialness to the interaction. It's different, but when I walk into a hospital room and I'm wearing my chaplain badge, it says to the person that I have a reason to be there. That may not feel necessary. And you may wear your name tag the first visit and then say, that felt silly. And then the next time when you're assigned to Sally, you might not show up with your name tag. So thank you. You can be comfortable here. Nicole.
You mentioned this earlier, and I'm not sure where we landed, but should we bring anything? Can we bring the refreshments? Or flowers?
I would ask, that's a good question. you might want to ask before you come on that first call. You might say, oh, I live next to an amazing bakery. Would it be okay if I picked up some Danish on the way? There are often dietary limitations, and often hosts will say, no, don't bring anything, in which case don't bring anything. If this becomes a multiple visit, you might bring flowers the next time, I don't know. But again, these are all to be discerned from your gut. Yeah, Sophia.
I had a question, so obviously the people that we are going with, most of them are older and some of them are immunocompromised. Do we want to open the conversation about wearing masks and that, or what do you think about that? I am comfortable doing whatever the person is, but I know it's sensitive, you know.
Yeah.
It's a great question.
It's a great question. We may know some of that beforehand,
Okay.
which would lead to your ability to ask a question.
Okay.
So I know of a handful of congregants who do not like to be hugged for that reason. But that's my experience. If you don't know that at first, you probably aren't going to hug John when you first show up at his home. If he wants to hug you, you have to decide if you're comfortable with that. You don't have to be hugged. You are allowed to be safe. But when I come over to a home, I pretty much always say to the family, would you like me to take my shoes off? It just shows respect. Yeah, I hate taking my shoes off. I'm always hoping they say, oh, no, that's okay. Or only if you want to. Good, I don't want to. Yeah, it's a way of just kind of demonstrating that respect. And so if we know that the person's been going through some illness, you can show up with a mask and say, would you feel more comfortable if I wore a mask? Yeah.
Most of them communicate correctly anyway. You don't have to ask. Most of our immunocompromised people tell us, I'm not
Yeah, all right.
Maybe I'm jumping ahead, but if this relationship goes great, whether it's a phone call or in-person visit, do we carry this forever?
John's not gonna, no, never mind. I was gonna say, John's not gonna live forever. I know, I should have probably not gone back to finish the sentence, right? The goal here is to help John feel connected. So if you're feeling the groove, and there was a nice connection, good chemistry, and you're willing to keep going, you don't have to visit him every week. You can say, God, I really enjoyed this on the way out. Can I give you a call in a couple weeks? Or can I?
It's up to us to carry the relationship as long as we want to, or if it's beneficial to
So
the job.
I'm going to show you a quick little form to fill out after the visit, and one of the questions has to do with how was it left? You know, what's happening next? If you get tired of John, if you've gone to see him 3 times or once and it wasn't a good fit, you'll let the coordinator know. And we'll either find someone else to pick up with John, or we'll let it go. Did you raise your hand first, Sophia? No, okay, then I saw a hand over here and thought it was hers. Go ahead.
So just, to jump onto what Andre was saying, is it would be good to know the expectations. Are we expected to make 1, 2, 3, 10 phone calls visits?
Larry, how did it work with Bikur Cholim at JFS? Was it an ongoing?
It wasn't ongoing, but the expectation is not to use that ongoing. I don't want anyone to feel that pressure. So we'll work it through on an individual basis.
Okay.
If you were to do 3 visits and feel like you really enjoyed the time with John, you'd really enjoy visiting someone else. Or you realize you don't like visiting anyone. You'll have to turn in your name tag. Mary's already turned in her name tag. And then you can move on to whatever's next, and we'll assign someone else to John. You don't have to worry about abandoning John.
So there's like the length or the duration of their illness, or we don't know that yet, as we're.
The cases are all really different. Yeah, if someone has broken their leg and needs to be in bed for 6 weeks, that's really different than John, who's 87 years old and otherwise pretty healthy. So yeah, there'll be cases where the need for this Bikur Cholim relationship comes to a natural close, and other cases where we need to maintain that connection with John because he's getting a lot out of it, but it doesn't have to be you.
I have another thought, just thinking about the assisted living locations. It may be good to also think about, like, if there are a couple people like living at Waterstone or Waveney, can we do like a thing where we can visit a couple people at a time and maybe playing a card game with them or bingo? You know, like that's just some of the stuff I'm thinking about, because assisted living residents like love visitors. It really makes the experience, like their life so much better. I know it from my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
She lights up, and so even if I keep, like, if I'm there seeing her, I'm like, well, who else, like, could I be, like, you know, we do a little lunch group together, could we do some checkers together, you know, like, can we play some cards together?
Totally, yep.
And we work all these things.
No, I know, I'm just, I need to.
If it's okay,
Yes, yes, no.
I'm trying to stay within an hour, which means I've got 12 more minutes, and I've got 72 minutes worth of material.
I said 60 to 90.
You did?
Yeah.
60 to 90. Okay, Nicole, what did you want to say?
It was a question I had from the beginning, just out of curiosity, the list that you have been mentioning a few times of 80 or 81 elders. Okay, so this is kind of an odd question, but I'm curious. That list, do we know if they have family in the area? Not that that matters, because maybe they still want to help, but I am curious to know, do they have another grandkid in town, or do they want to borrow my Isaac? Because that was part of the conversation ancillary.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily matter, like, yes, maybe they do have family and they still could use a visitor, but in my personal opinion, I think it'd be kind of nicer to focus on the ones that don't have any family in there.
Yeah.
So like I said, there's a diversity
Okay.
of people that we have. And not everybody is local. We're going to be making calls to Florida, Virginia, Michigan, Illinois, Massachusetts, New York, California. So we have congregants spread throughout the country that are part of the family that we want to reach out to and make them feel
And it's also, you'll talk with the coordinators ahead of time, but if you've visited John 3 times, you might say to him, John, I've told you all about Isaac, and I've told Isaac all about you. Would it be okay if I brought him next time to meet you? Work that through with the coordinator to make sure it's appropriate, but I could imagine that could be really cool.
That's how I first reached out to Larry about this, I was like, Isaac doesn't have an energy on Saturdays, can we find someone to go play travel with?
Yep.
And I said, then we're here.
So let's talk for a few moments about boundaries. Okay? You are being invited into their space, however, you are also invading their space a little bit. And so you want to be sensitive, really kind of gentle in the way you interact. If there's a picture on the wall, it's certainly natural to ask about that. I wouldn't necessarily ask John, have you got any scars that I can't see? Or, you know, I don't know. Be careful, be thoughtful about how much you pry into John's life before John invites you into that part of his life. Similarly, you can guard your privacy as well. If John has no social skills and wants to know all about your personal life and you don't want to talk about that, you can just deftly say, you know, I get the question, but I actually came to talk more about you, and just spin it right back. There's no need for you to open up more than you want to. And you should feel free to reveal a little bit about yourself if you want to, because it does, it establishes trust. I want you to be really thoughtful and careful about what you're offering. A lot of times, these folks have needs that are difficult for them to meet. Like, all they need is someone to pick up that prescription over at CVS. You're not that kind of angel. They often need someone to drive them to a doctor's appointment. You're not a chauffeur. Please do not offer them advice, especially medical advice. Don't offer them a referral unless it's your favorite dentist. We can't be in the position of providing that kind of information to folks. So, even if they say, oh God, wish I could find a good chiropractor. And you have a good chiropractor. Just leave it alone. Yeah. What you can say is, that's a really important thing, and I'll get back to this in another minute. That's a really important thing I'm hearing you mention, John, the need for a chiropractor. Would it be okay with you if I mentioned that to Rabbi Jay? Or would it be okay with you if I told Larry about that? And then in different ways, we can have that conversation, but it takes the risk off of you guys. That make sense? Almost. The last thing I wanted to say about that was confidentiality.
Can I just add one more thing?
By all means, thanks, Larry.
You're also not meant to do physically cleansing the house. Oftentimes it's like, oh, can you grab this for me? Can you put my groceries away? That's not your job. And that puts you in sort of a difficult position at times. So you're there to listen to you, and that's pretty much it. So I'll put you, I think Alan mentioned somebody had asked me, "Can you grab the ladder for you, just go up and clean out the gutters or whatever?" That's not what you're there for. So safety's an issue as well.
Great, thank you. So confidentiality, these are not HIPAA protected interactions, HIPAA being the Privacy Act, but they are human interactions. I don't know what John's going to share with you, but there's probably no reason for you to go home and mention on Facebook what John told you. If you want to talk with your partner thoughtfully about it, partners are kind of a special trust, unless your partner's a big mouth. But generally, John's trusting you, and so you're going to want to just hold on to your relationship with the same kind of privacy you'd expect someone to do for you. Makes sense? Yeah. Okay. Couple things about the end of your time together. So, be aware or just note the time that you've been there. If you were supposed to head over and meet John at 2, how long's the right amount of time to stay? What would you say? How long should you stay with John?
An hour,
Maybe an hour?
maybe more if it's really more for leadership.
It's a really great conversation, maybe more than an hour.
Or if it feels like it's difficult for them at that moment, make a judgment. I think this is, this has been wonderful, and then go into how you make want to come back again. So it's not uncomfortable for them to have to say in their own mind, when is he going to?
Yeah. So Alan's saying to pay attention to their body language and their words, even their eyes. It's really common that folks get tired, and you'll see maybe just a little bit of glassy eyes. Maybe not that they're going to fall asleep in front of you, but they may they communicate fatigue. So Alan, if you picked up on that, how long might the visit be?
If it were 20 minutes, and it seemed like that was, seeming like they're ready for that to end, it doesn't matter to me that, I really wish it could be more like a half an hour.
Yeah.
It's not about me, it's about how they're reacting.
Beautiful.
And maybe next time, a half an hour goes by and you think, wow, that was easier.
Yep. Alan is exactly right. It might be a 20-minute visit. And it could also be for other reasons. It could be because it's awkward and you don't quite know how to handle the awkward silence. And you're crawling to get out of there. That's allowed too. So it might be a 20-minute visit. Andre's going to be hanging out with him for an hour and a half. Who knows? You need to be the one, though, to help them, just like Alan said, to give them the ability to help you out of their space. It's very awkward to ask someone to leave, but overstaying your welcome can be really rough, too. You're going to want to thank them. I'll look to see if anyone would have been with me. When I go over to Atria or Waterstone or Edge Hill and I lead a Shabbat service, I always finish by thanking them for inviting me into their home. You know, it's a collective environment, but it's their home and I'm their guest. Same thing with you. John's gonna, you know, even if he's in Edge Hill and his room is just one in a long row of rooms, he invited you into his home. Thank him. Thank you for having me, John. If you enjoyed the time, tell him that. You don't have to lie and say, I loved this if it was a disaster. But if you enjoyed it, say so. If something came up, like John's need for a chiropractor, or John having a hard time getting his medicine, or John talking about how, yeah, my roof's been leaking, you know, for 2 weeks now, ask John if it's okay with him if you share that information with Larry, or with me, or with just the two of us. Get his permission, because it just gives him control. And then, depending on how the visit went, if it went well enough, doesn't have to be amazing, you can ask about whether they'd like you to come back for another visit. The language there puts them in the driver's seat. It's different than, can I come back? Would you like me to come back? Is a different energy. Let them articulate it. Okay. Larry sent out the looking for one thing I skipped. Larry sent out the playbook. I don't know that everyone had a chance to kind of look it through carefully. That's not what I want. That's not what I want either. What's that?
Fingers crossed that it works.
Yeah, right. I'm not going to run through the whole thing because you have this, and that's why we gave it to you. But a lot of what we talked about is already in here. So you've got some tips about being fully present. You know, we talked about pausing before you arrive and really getting there. We talked about being a good listener. There are ways that we demonstrate that we're really hearing someone. Where's my pointer? Here it is. And then, you know, when you're listening, depending on what they tell you, try to remain neutral and non-judgmental. Listen with an open heart. You're more likely to really hear what they have to say. This, for me, is kind of a big deal. You know, our society is not particularly comfortable with silence. Silence can be really beautiful. Understand that if there's an awkward silence, you might be the only one feeling awkward. Think ahead about what it would be like to sit with John in a few moments of silence and look around the room and smile and look at him. Communicate with your body language that you don't expect anything of him. He doesn't have to break the silence. If you think of something you want to say, wonderful. Compassionate listening really is the name of the game here. There are a couple things that we kind of know better than to say. Things like, I know how you feel. You don't. It's our effort at making an empathic connection, but very often it backfires on us. We don't actually want to say that. You can instead say things like, it sounds like you feel pretty bad. Sounds like things are really tough right now. Or I can really hear how hard this is. If the conversation gets heavy, it might not. You might just spend the whole time talking about fly fishing. You should read up on fly fishing before you go see John. It's a big thing in his life. Can you tell me more about that? Or, wow, I've never even thought about that before. Elaborate. People like to be interesting. You can help that by opening them up in that way. Yeah, I'm just looking to see if there's anything else I want to go over on the playbook. It's all good. You should spend a little time with it. I don't need to go over it with you now. Yeah. So some of the really tried and true approaches, especially with elders, are to get them talking about their earlier life. Asking them, so where'd you grow up, John? Or, you know, what'd you do for a living? Or, you know, what'd you like to do when you were a kid? Politics are probably a little bit risky, unless John outs himself as a like-minded person. But you know, these are pretty dramatic times, and you can talk about current world, especially if you say something like, "God, John, you've been around a long time. You're super old, dude. Have you ever seen anything like this?" You know, just getting him to reflect on what life has looked like. What were some of the trips that you took during your life? What are you most proud of? Where'd you leave a real mark on the world, John? Those are kinds of things that can just be conversation starters. Okay. Let me show you one more item before I think I'm done with my material, and that was just the survey. Not a survey, it's a little form. So, all right, so we're going to send you a link. This is still the back end of the form, but it'll just be something like this. This is a Bikur Cholim engagement log. Couple quick questions, just for us to know how it's going with John. We'll be tracking John's interactions with Temple Sinai, and for you to have a chance to kind of think it through a little bit. So, you know, nothing revolutionary here. You've got your name, the date of the visit or the call, the name of the person. You know, John's name goes here. Where did it happen? Was it at the individual's home? Was it on the phone or Zoom? Was it in a residential facility like a rehab or an assisted living? Or was it some other option that's not listed there? How do you feel the visit went? Whoa, what the hell just happened there? Oh, man. All right. Oh, okay, there we go. How do you feel it went? Just perfect. Felt the clear value. It was good, but there was something missing. It was a little difficult. Couldn't make a good connection. It was problematic. There were clear issues. And then if you want to add a different response, that's here for you as well. Is there anything important that you feel that Larry or Rabbi Jay should know about the interaction? This is more of an open-ended space, just to let us know what you think we should know. How was the conversation concluded? Just gratitude and goodbye? Or we set up the next visit or call? And there could be another option here that I didn't offer. And then finally, would you like to be put in contact with another Sinai member? This is assuming that. Yeah, ready to go. Or yes, but give me a little time. Or no, I've started a good connection with this individual and would like to keep it going. Or no, I don't think this whole Bikur Cholim experience was a good fit for me. After each visit, you know, you'll see John, maybe, God, Andre's gonna still be with John from the last visit. But, you know, who said like 10 visits? One of you was like, 10 visits? So you're gonna see John, well, Elizabeth's gonna see John 10 times. So she may not spend as much time on the log after each visit, but we will ask her to log each visit, just so we can keep track. We're really committed to Sinai members having a lot of interactions with Sinai all year long. Yes?
Can I just put a plug in for the preparing committee volunteers? I know some of you have signed up, so if this very last one is like, the Cholim is not a good fit for me, but you want to continue providing something for people who are in need, please reach out to myself or Larry or Joanna. Thanks.
There it is.
There it is.
Your words.
There was a section there that said, hey, check these or something. So, because of my work, I have to go into this.
Kara is an EMS tech.
Would it be appropriate at that point, if we went into somebody's house and we felt that there was a need, it was an unsafe place, and they didn't seem to have food, that we could put that into YouTube? Obviously, I would also make a phone call, but.
Yeah, that's exactly what should go into.
These are the actionable information.
Right, I mean,
Yep.
just going into some houses.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
could be a hoarder house, it could be anything, but.
Yeah, like Kara said, anything you see, even if it proves not to be a big deal, this is the place to let us know what you think is important to know. Yeah,
I'm so
Elizabeth.
sorry, I have to ask this, I didn't come up with things, Kara. Also, if we go into a home, like I'm a mandated reporter, if I go into a home and there's clear signs of like elder abuse,
Yeah.
I have to report
Yeah,
that.
yeah, you do.
But do we note that on this form, like, had to make this ACS call?
I think, so Elizabeth's asking about mandated reporting. I'm repeating this for the recording. And yeah. So when there are cases where you, as a mandated reporter, need to file a report, maybe let Larry and me know, so we can kind of just be a part of the follow-up and the follow-through. There will be action that takes place, and it's good for us to know. We may not be the ones involved, but it's good for us to understand what's happening.
Can you just say, I mean, I was in the school system, and I knew to quote BCS. I never worked with the elderly where you had to report an abuse. What agency?
So you would call, it's the, Kara, correct me, it's the Connecticut Department of, like, Adult Services or Aging. Yeah.
It's technically called APS, Adult Protective Services.
Thank you.
If you can't find it easily, it's on the 211 website.
So,
Adult Protective Services.
yeah, just like Child Protective.
Yeah.
And they are mandated to follow up. In Connecticut, they're actually more likely to.
I am feeling an enormous amount of gratitude. I'm looking around the room and I'm still just, my goosebumps have gone down, but what Larry said in opening us up really stuck with me. I'm seeing the change agents, I'm seeing the Sinai angels, the ones who are going to make a meaningful difference in lives. And I just want to say thank you now, and I'll say thank you again and again and again, because Larry and I can't do Sinai ourselves. It wouldn't be Sinai if we did. So, thank you very much, everybody.
Do you guys have any other questions or comments?
Stop calling me an angel.
I will not stop calling you an angel.
Oh my God.
Go back to this survey a couple of years ago, because that was a good description of what angels are.
What did I say a couple of years ago?
You talked through all the different kinds of angels at your cold intro survey a couple of years ago.
I did?
You should do that.
This is a good one, huh?
They also did it during COVID.
Yeah, that I actually recall.
And can I just want to say thank you to Elizabeth and Robin and Lisa Silver, who are here with us tonight. They are the parent committee, and this is something that I've been wanting to do for 2 years. I've been talking to Rabbi today about this. And with all the growth and everything that's been going on, I have not been able to actualize it. But with this parent committee, I just felt a surge of support being needed this happen. So thank you, Lisa.
We've been talking about reframing these groups of people who are engaged in important things from committees, because you know how exciting committees are, to teams. It's your choice, but maybe talk about it amongst yourselves, whether you're the caring team.
I like the word team. I feel like we're all in it together. I feel like the committee just doesn't feel as inclusive or
It's
something.
not, yeah.
I like that word, it's warmer.
Speaking of teams then, I know it's getting late, but we didn't introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, you asked for a mixer.
Not a mixer.
An
an
icebreaker, yeah.
But I know
Anyone
it's
have a
getting late.
suggestion? You want to ask them about their favorite car?
Why would I? Why would I?
That's so 2016.
It was hilarious. So what happens on the women's retreat stays on the women's retreat. But what happens on the men's retreat is fodder for harassment and shaming
Nice knowing you.
down the road. So, Alan worked with me to create the very first men's retreat years ago, and one of his tasks was, why don't you come with an icebreaker for the group? So Alan and I both love cars. We think cars are awesome. So Alan said, all right, everyone tell us your name and your favorite car. And this particular group, there was like one other guy out of the 20 who had even an answer. They're all like, I don't really care about cars. It was such a flop.
8 out of 10 of you are morons. Okay.
Yeah. It was an epic fail, and I like mentioning it every opportunity. How should we introduce ourselves? What are the interesting things about each other you'd like to know? How about your name, how long you've been a part of Temple Sinai's family, and your most memorable trip?
I was also gonna suggest maybe what made us decide to come to this. I also like trips though.
It's because you're all angels. I mean, that's kind of like, okay. And why you came to do this? Andrea, you wanna,
I'm sorry, what was the
your name?
What's your name, Andrea?
What interesting thing am I supposed to say? That's not that interesting. Andrea Cholim.
How long have you been at Sinai?
48 years.
48 years?
I just looked it up, Andrea's on the list.
I said, I'm gonna be on this committee or whatever, and it's about visiting the elderly, and he said, England, over 65 is the elderly. You're not elderly, but, so.
Andrew and I have a good enough relationship that I could.
It's not any longer.
You did.
It's that local box.
And my mother is gonna be 100 in June. And she is tech savvy, writes poetry, lives independently. So even though you talk about the elderly, I still think you're young at 100. I mean, that's just been my experience.
Yeah.
I'm Larry.
How long have you been at Sinai?
Actually, I've been a member since 2015, and I've been an employee since 2017.
What's your most memorable trip?
Israel, Galapagos, Rockport, Massachusetts.
I'm Carol. I have been a member here for 7 years.
How old are you?
She's 45.
I took my third grade class.
And I'm kind of a secret. 3 children. 2 are princess and 1 daughter. And my daughter was graduating first. Simcha.
First what?
Simcha. Means Sophia.
Yeah.
And
Most memorable trip?
I've had a lot of amazing trips, however, I think my most memorable are my family trips each year. We had March together.
Beautiful.
You guys want to see memorable trips or while you doing it? We could show.
I like it.
You could trick.
And Nicole has been a member for a mere 4 years. Well, I'm gonna say why I did this also, just real quick. I mentioned people at the synagogue that we go play Rummy Cube revival with. And he was like, I'm not just gonna send you out to some person's house, we're gonna figure out a train. So stay tuned. So I love that this came together so quickly. Favorite, most memorable, also lots of trips, but the most, I can't talk, obviously. This past summer, my husband and I celebrated our 10-year anniversary and we went to Mallorca, and it was perfection. It was so good.
My name is Beth. My husband and our son and I have been members for 15-ish years, something like that. Also family trips. Last year we took a trip from Barcelona and southern France. And every time we take a trip with our son, he's that much older and that much more engaged and just that much more fun to be with. So family trips are wonderful.
Hi, I'm Sophia. I've been a member for about a month now, so very girl. So fun. So yeah, I guess my most memorable trip, I did a study abroad with my sister in Europe 2 years ago, and we went all over, and it was like the most amazing like sister time ever, and I wish I could go back every day.
I'm Elizabeth with an S, because we have one with a Z, and I've been a member also for four-ish years. And I think my most memorable trip was in the late 90s, spending 3 weeks on the Colorado Plateau camping at National Parks.
Sounds memorable.
Yeah, it's like the best.
Elizabeth, she means the 1990s.
Why did you say Sophia?
I don't remember well enough.
Get ready.
Marion, and I'm an elder, so I expect everybody.
You are not the elder, because
No, you get one.
she has a turtle at her house if you want to visit. Is that for you?
I've been a member for 7 years, and I decided to do this because I've been doing this kind of on the sly a lot, and decided might as well have the training and do it as a real town sign up.
I'm Robin Himmelstein. I've been a member since 2016. I can tell you that when I went through my own personal tragedy, Son and I wrapped their arms around me, and there was nothing more amazing than this community, and I wanted to give back the same thing that I received. And I want to say that in my 30s, I did a trip for people in their 30s called Leave Don't. And it was very cool because you got to do things in Israel that were off the beaten path, and you got to, I painted houses, we served food, and you got to go to places that you wouldn't usually see. And I was on a trip with all these people that I had no clue who they were, and I got to meet all these people. So to me, that was like the best trip.
I am Elizabeth with a Z. I have been a Sinai affiliate or member for somewhere between 2 to 3 years, I think. Easily the best trip, I'm thinking back to my early childhood, going down to Florida to see my great-grandmother. She lived on a canal, and we got to pull up the crab trap every morning. It was my favorite part of the day. That and watching my great-grandmother get herself in and out of a canoe without assistance. Well into her 90s,
That's
so
awesome.
yeah, it was quite a sight. But when Larry proposed this to me, I immediately said yes. I work at the Jewish Family Service in Stamford, and not at all in a clinical dimension, but I've had plenty of new retirees or seniors looking to get involved that have wound up in my office just in tears and sharing their experiences, and I decided that I wanted to take the space that I was able to give them in our offices into their own homes and into a non-professional realm to what I like doing.
I'm Alan Barr. I've been a member for about 27 years. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this is that when I'm not in my dental practice here in Stanford, I do see patients in nursing homes. Now, there's a whole lot less dentistry that we do because of the physical setup that's there and because they don't really want much. But I'm very comfortable with that population and I enjoy being with them. And I thought this would be a nice way to add on to that with very little stress for me, just a lot of upside. I guess more notably as a great trip was Thanksgiving to see the Grand Canyon with my kids. That was, as I expected it, I had no words when I looked at it and the house, and that was really special.
Right. Okay, my name is Andrea Flo. I don't know how many years I've been a member, but I would say over 20 years. You may have the numbers, but I'm
You
sure.
have the numbers.
Quite a bit ago. So I'm here because I absolutely adore making connections. I feel it's a lot of gratitude from making people happy, and I hate the idea of giving back, because giving back implies that you've taken something already. I just love to give, and it's an incredible feeling that I get. About trips, that's a tricky question, because it's one of the things we love to do. I was thinking about it as you were all talking. I can think of the trip I took with my daughter who was about to be married last year. She's going to take a trip just with her. So we spent a week in Arches National Park. I remember going to visit Taj Mahal in Agra years ago. I'm from Morocco. It was incredible in 2019 to go hike in the Sahara Desert. Love Costa Rica. So I don't know, it's tricky. I love them all. Love them all. It's tough stuff. But that's why I'm here.
My name's Jay. I've been a member for 13 years. My favorite trip, my most memorable trip was with Julie before she was my wife, and we took a trip from Israel to Thailand, and just had lots of vivid imagery kind of stuck in my head from that adventure. And doing this is important to me because this is where Judaism realizes its second half of the potential. The first half is in helping you all grow and think and connect to the bigger picture, and it's about you. The second half of that is when Judaism starts really working right. It's when you start giving. And so I love the idea that you are perfect examples of the balance between, this is countercultural. Our culture encourages us to take, and Judaism encourages us to give. And so I love that you're all taking part in this, and that's why I want it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
We appreciate you.